Missed the light. All right, so I'm hoping it doesn't rain today. I decided to save some time and drive down to Laguna Beach, record this little bit while I'm driving down. So I have my Canon ATD mounted to my window right now. And what I'm going to do is, somebody recently, just today actually, posted on one of the videos, I think on the point of interest video, and asked me, could I do a video explaining how I use filters on the Phantom? Sounds like a great topic. So I'll tell you, I'm going to talk a little bit about filters really quick, what ones I use and why, and then give you some demonstrations of them. So largely on the Phantom, I use one type of filter. I use an Nd8 filter and that's it. Lately in my videos, I haven't had them on there, but what an Nd8 filter does is it lets less light through. So if you have a, let's say that right now I needed to shoot, and I needed to shoot at like ISO 100, and my shutter speed was still 1/1000th. It's gonna make the video super sharp, which sounds good. It's not necessarily. And it's great if you have to pull stills from, not great for video. And it's probably gonna make it's gonna make it look stuttery. So ideally with video, you want your shutter to be about twice what your frame rate is. So if I'm filming at 1080p at 24 frames a second, I want my shutter to be 24, or in most cameras, because they don't do, 48, but most cameras don't do 48, they'll do 50. So I'd want to set my shutter at 50. But on a day where unless it's sunset out, being able to shoot it 50 frames a second, or at a shutter speed of 50, and even at ISO 100 just isn't going to be possible. It's going to make your image be really blown out. So you're going to have a shutter rate that's probably going to be 200 or 400 or 1,000, which is going to make your video look a bit choppy. So to combat that, to kind of not have that happen, we could put a neutral density filter in there. You can think of neutral density filter as kind of like sunglasses for your camera lens. Dark piece of glass that goes in front of it. It's called neutral because it shouldn't shift the color of what you're filming at all. In some instances with really long exposure ones like a Lee Big Stopper, you can tend to get a magenta cast. You can fix that. But overall it's neutral, so it doesn't really have any color tint to it at all. So that it coming through is still the same color. And you're just letting less light through, which means your shutter has to stay open longer to expose properly. Generally, I shoot in manual, and I will set my ISO down, and then I will put Nd8 filters on, either what's called an Nd8 or an Nd8 or an Nd8, which are just the values of the Nd8 filter, on there until my histogram looks good, so I get this kind of shape so that my light's right in the middle, and my shutter speed is at 50. If it's a little bit to the right, so it's a little overexposed, and that's as close as I can get, that's fine. I'd rather be a little bit over than a little bit under, because I can always bring it back down a little bit. I find easier than bringing the shadows up. You can do it either way. I get a little bit more latitude if I'm a little overexposed. So typically I use neutral density filters. You will see that there are circular polarizers out there for sale as well. In a lot of motion, circular polarizers aren't used because you're constantly moving, and generally a circular polarizer is working best in one orientation. So if I have the sun over here and it's shining directly on me right now, I'm gonna get some glare on my windshield, and if I wanted to take a still photo and get rid of that glare, I could put a circular polarizer onto my camera, adjust it so that it cuts out those reflections, because it's taking a scattered wavelength of light and it has polarizing lines in it. It's making that light go straight through, then you don't get the reflections. So where light's bouncing off, that's what a reflection is. The polarizer is going to cut that off so that it doesn't allow that light that's coming in at a weird direction to come in. I think that's a pretty good explanation. Somebody will probably blast me for it, but that's how I think of a polarizer. The problem with using them with video is that you've got, you're moving. And a polarizer works best when your camera is at 90 degrees to the sun. So it'll still get a little bit of effect, but if you're looking at the sun straight on, so the sun's right above you, not much of an angle, and you're trying to use a polarizer, you're not going to get much effect. Or the sun's directly behind you, and you're trying to use a polarizer this way, you're not going to get much of an effect. But if you're at 90 degrees to the sun, or the sun's directly overhead and you're on some water, that can work out well. So typically in video you won't use them. Now on the Phantom you could use them if, let's say that your the sun is over here, so like straight in front of me, and I'm going to shoot something that's tracking like side to side, that's over here, that's 90 degrees away. Let's say that it's water or whatever, and I'm not going to be turning the Phantom. I could put a polarizer on. I could adjust it so that the reflections and the colors and everything, colors are saturated, a little bit more detail comes out, the reflections are gone. Then if I'm just shooting a tracking shot or a steady shot, maybe I'm going up in elevation and I'm coming down, just some shot where I'm not rotating the Phantom, then my color in my light during the scene isn't going to change. The sun's where it is, and that's a good use for a polarizer. When you put a polarizer on, you're cutting a little bit of light, generally what's called 1 to 2 stops of light. So you're cutting, the light value that's coming in is less. And if you're moving and that polarizer isn't having the effect that it should at all times because the sun's no longer 90 degrees at it, then your colors and the light value is going to change. So if you're shooting manually, your scene will get brighter, your scene will get darker as you move the Phantom around. So that's the two main things for filters that I use. If I'm not using an ND filter for some reason, I'll just throw a UV filter on it, just to cut UV light and really just to protect the lens of the camera itself. You can use the one that came with your Phantom, or I use PolarPro. There's a bunch of different ones out there. In this small of a filter, really what's important is just getting something that's glass and not plastic so it doesn't scratch up. It's a little bit optically better. They're all, I want to say, somewhere between like $40 and $60 for a set. You can get the PolarPro 3 set. So it comes with 3, it comes with like an Nd8, a 4, and an 8, I think. Or they have a 6 set. They have ones that have warming filters and cooling filters. I don't deal with any of that because I manipulate the color in post. So I just put a ND filter on until the exposure is right, and then that's what I shoot with. So hopefully that helps. As we get down to the beach, I will go with some filters. I'll hold the filters up to the camera here so that you can see what they actually do, and then we'll put them onto the Phantom and show you how they affect the frame rate and everything else. So one other thing, I said that whenever I shoot with the Phantom, I shoot in manual. So that's largely true. If the light's all crazy out, I might just put an ND filter on there to slow the shutter down and just let the Phantom take care of it. I try and stay down to low ISO and just let it take care of it. And usually that's fine. I mean, the Phantom camera, for the size that it is and what it does, is great. It does a pretty good job of the settings and overall. But if it's not crazy light conditions like today, it's overcast, so super flat light. I know that the light from now, really until sunset, is going to be exactly the same if the sun doesn't come out. So this is a great situation for me to shoot manually, not worry about the light changing at all because it's not going to, and I can set the correct neutral density filter on there for that. So I shoot manually. My camera settings, I generally shoot in D-Log. So if you go under video, I choose D-Log, which makes a very flat picture, so when you're looking at it, it doesn't look that great. But that's what I can bring into Premiere or Speed Grade later and grade the best. And then on top of that, I take contrast down some. I take sharpness, I set sharpness at 0. I take contrast down 2 or 3, and then I take saturation down 1 or 2. So I want a really flat looking image. That gives you the most latitude. It doesn't seem like it would, but it gives you the most latitude later on in post for coloring things and for getting the light and everything else right. And I'll do a tutorial on color grading later. I use Premiere, I'll do one in there, but you could take the same concepts across to other programs. All right, so getting down here towards Laguna Beach, it is an overcast day out. So if you didn't see the video yesterday, or yesterday now, I'm filming this today on Monday. I posted the video today of who won the Microraptor case. Thank you everybody for joining. Craig Martin, congratulations. Leadville, your case will be on its way tomorrow. For those of you watching, you probably know I'm giving away another case. I'm giving away a Go Professional SKB hard custom Phantom 4 case as soon as I reach 750 subscribers. I should have probably said 1,000 because I was at 200 on Friday. It's already at 370 now. Probably gonna be there in the next week and a half or so, but that's great. Just a way of me saying thank you to everybody for watching and spending a few minutes each day just watching these videos. Let's park. So if you have any questions, like I said, just even around general photography, feel free to ask me. That's what I do. I shoot all the time, and it's what I love to do. So let's get down to the beach. So like I said, we're gonna talk about two different kinds of filters. We're talking about neutral density filters. So you can see the sky out here, a little bit brighter, a little washed out. So we're gonna talk about neutral density filters, and what that's gonna do is cut the amount of light coming into the sensor through the lens. And then we're gonna talk about a circular polarizer. And a circular polarizer is gonna take scattered light and make it straight, or not let that scattered light through so that you're not getting reflections. So I'm gonna try and demonstrate these on this lens. So to start, on my Phantom, I use two different kinds. I'll use generally an Nd8 or an Nd8, so not two kinds, but two values. Let's see what we have here first. Okay, so this is an Nd8. So this is gonna stop two stops of light. So let me just show this really quick. As we go here, I'm gonna put it up right here so you can see how I am and how the sky is. Now let me put the Nd filter in. You can see how much darker that makes it, but it's not changing the color. So that's an Nd8, so it's letting basically a fourth of the light through that normally would be. Take it away, put it back. What that's good for is if I'm flying the Phantom and I want to be at twice my frame rate with my shutter speed, so let's say that I'm flying at 1080p at 60 frames a second, I want my shutter to be 120. But even when it looks flat out like this, if I wanted to get it at 120 at ISO 100, it wouldn't happen. There's too much light. It'd probably have to be at 500 or something higher. So I put an Nd filter on so that I can slow that shutter down. Let's see, so that was an Nd8. So what we have here. Okay, this is the circular polarizer. So I'll show you here what this is going to do. So if we look at the sky, like right in this area, when I pop this up, it's a little bit more detail in the clouds there and in the water. So the water's a little washed out, put the circular polarizer in front. Now let me just see if I can turn this. This is good for a static shot like this, like I said earlier, where I'm not moving. The sun is over in that direction, so it's actually about 90 degrees to where we are. Blue's a little more blue, more detail in the clouds, less reflection in the water. So if you look at the sand right down here, you can see a little less glare on the sand from the sun, and in the water, and more detail in the clouds. So that's a circular polarizer. I'm not gonna put that on the Phantom today. Then the other one is the Nd4 and the Nd8. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get the Phantom on. I'm gonna show you with just the regular stock glass filter that's on there what it looks like. We're gonna shoot so we can get some nice kind of cinematic, maybe we wanna slow it down and post some shots of the water. I'm gonna shoot at 1080p, 60 frames a second. I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna turn it on and record with it and show you what it's like without a filter on there. Then put an Nd4 on and see what that can bring the histogram to. The histogram will give me an EV rating. Well, not the histogram, but the light meter. So it'll say I'm either 0 EV, -1 or 2 EV, which means I need more light to come in. So if I have an Nd8 on there, I might swap it out and put an Nd4. Or if I'm at ISO 100 with an Nd4, I could take it off, see if I need it. Or if I'm right in between, like maybe I'm flying and the light changes a little bit, then I can change my ISO up one stop from like ISO 100 to 200. That'll make the sensor more sensitive and I can balance that out. So put that on there, see how it is without a filter on there at 1080p, 60 frames a second, which means that I want my shutter to be at 120. So I'll set that up and then we'll take a look and see. Going in here, let's go back in the DJI Go app. So right now you can take a look and see this. Let's go ahead and pick this up. We'll pick up the Phantom, point at the sky, and you can see how everything is completely washed out. It says that if you look at the EV, it says +2 EV. I'm at 1080p, 60 frames a second. I'm at 1/120th of a second for the shutter and ISO 100. So that's not good, right? Everything is washed out. There's no detail whatsoever. Now, if I was to change the Phantom and go into here and tell it to go auto, let's see what it changes it to. So you'll see it changes the shutter to 1/800th of a second at ISO, actually 1/1000th of a second. So what that's gonna do is make really jittery video. It's not gonna give that kind of natural motion blur that you want. If you're going out and you're shooting video and you wanna capture really sharp stills from the video, then shooting at 1/1000th is fine, but your video is going to be a little more choppy. You want to get that more cinematic, natural motion blur going, where nobody would really notice it's a blur, but when it's not there, it's kind of like when you have that super smooth on your TV, and it just looks fake. We want to have that natural motion blur in there. So right now, that's about how we want to get it, but we want to get it there so that the sky is like that at 1/100th or 1/120th of a second. So to do that, we're gonna have to put some neutral density on there. Let's go ahead and change this back to manual. So 1/120th of a second, it tells me that I'm +2 EV. So let's grab a Nd8 because that's 2 stops. So that +2 is each stop. So I need to bring it down to +1, then to 0 to even it out. So I'm gonna grab the Nd8 filter really quick. Okay, so here's our Nd8 filter, like I showed you earlier. A lot less light coming through. So on the Phantom, let me turn the Phantom off. To do this, let me put this in my pocket, or actually I'll just set it right on top of the camera really quick. So I've got this here, this little front part, this actually just twists off. Oh, shit. This actually just twists off. So there you go. Now you want to get the threads right on this, and it's a little bit tricky. So you just want to play with it till it's on there nice and straight. You'll feel it. Like that's good. And then it actually goes a while before it seats all the way. So there we go. So now the Nd8 filter is on there. So you can see how dark that looks. Like I said earlier, it's like sunglasses for your Phantom, basically. Let's turn it back on. Now I already set the home point previously, so I'm not gonna have to do that again. Now watch when it comes up. You see the picture there? Now look at that. So 120th of a second. It goes 60 frames a second. And you can see the EV, 0 EV there, +3. That's all correctable, so that's great. I'm gonna bring it out onto the sand. I gotta watch out for the water because it is high tide here. So right now it still says cannot take off. Safe to fly non-GPS, it's updating. Let's hurry up and get this. I want it to get into GPS mode. So a couple of other things to consider. Talked about this earlier. ISO 100, 1/120th of a second. I mean 1/120th, 120th on the shutter. 60 frames a second. If I go to menu for the style, I do a custom. 0 for sharpness, -2 for contrast, -1 for saturation. And then for the color, I do D-Log, and here's the difference. So D-Log is this, it's a nice flat image. Let's go to D-Cine-like. See it change a little bit? Let's go to none. Let's go to vivid. You'll see the colors pop. I like to do log because I want a nice flat picture that I'm gonna grade later. So we still don't have GPS here. Should be pretty close, 8 satellites. There we go, safe to fly GPS, and let's take off. We're gonna record. We'll just go a little bit up and down the beach here. So let's just go out to this rock out here. So you can see now, pointing at the sun. Now, if I want to simulate what it would have been like without the Nd filter on there, I know that I went 2 stops, so I could actually just do this. Go back to ISO 400, or actually 800, I mean, 3 stops. That's what it would have looked like without the Nd filter on there if I was trying to shoot at 120 frames a second. So with the Nd filter on, I'm basically simulating it right now. This is where we are. A lot more detail, a lot better look. Maybe go pretty low over the water. Let's just go out to this rock. So I'm going to take it up here, This is Laguna Beach, one of my favorite places that there is. I'll just back way out, go up to 400 feet or so. Can you hear something interesting now? Now that we're pointed away from the sun, you can actually see how it says EV minus 1.7. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and stop this clip. You don't have to, you can keep recording because you can change this on the fly, but I want it to be a separate clip if I'm changing the setting. I can take this now to ISO 200. 400 it says plus 3 EV, 200 it says minus 0.7. I'll go just a little bit over because I can recover that. Bring it back down. Start recording again. So that's a good way to check and see if you're overexposed or underexposed, is looking at your light meter reading there. Phantom actually does a pretty decent job of reading the light accurately. So there we are, beautiful Laguna Beach. Now, one thing I've done with my controller, which I'll go over in another video, is I've changed the gain on the controller so I get a little smoother, slower movement out of it. It's one setting that you can do. I'll go over that in an overall video settings later. And let's just come in now over Laguna Beach. Don't you know it's getting hot, it's getting hot, 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 hot. I need secrets to be a prince, to be a part of me. Don't you know it's getting hot, it's getting hot, 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 hot. I need secrets to be a prince, to be a part of me. I need hot. Don't you know it is getting hot, it is getting hot, 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 hot. Don't you know it is getting hot, it is getting hot, 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 hot. I need secrets to be a prince, to be a part of me. Don't you know it is getting hot, it is getting hot, hot. All right, guys, so there you go. That is what a neutral density filter is for. So again, this is what I use. This is a PolarPro. This is an Nd8. You can go to an Nd16, which would be 4 stops. Some of you will see that I was able to bring the ISO up without having to bring my Phantom back and correct it when it was too dark. In some areas where it got too light, couldn't really do anything about it. You could raise the frame rate, but I want to stay at that double the, but you could raise the shutter. I wanted to keep my shutter at double the frame rate so that I get that natural kind of fluid motion blur. But that is Nd8 filters. You saw a little bit of the Circular Polarizer. I'll do more about using Circular Polarizers when I get into more photography topics. I use them all the time for landscape shooting. But hopefully you found this interesting today. You found this useful. Again, PolarPro are great. DJI actually sells their neutral density filters as well. I just happened to go on Amazon because I needed them the next day when I bought them. I bought my Phantom, realized I didn't have Nd8 filters for it, and then went out and bought some. Hope you learned something from this video today. If you have any questions, any comments about filters, this can get a little bit confusing. Feel free to ask below. Like I said, I answer everybody's questions. I reply to almost everyone. I at least like everybody's comments. So I appreciate the feedback. Anything that you want to see, let me know. This was a viewer suggested video, so I hope you liked it. And I will talk to you again tomorrow. So thanks for watching. BillNichols.tv will be up in just a couple weeks. Until then, keep on coming to the YouTube channel. Subscribe and share. And remember, I'm giving away the $200 plus GoPro professional case, custom cut for the Phantom 4. That link is right here. You know that I already gave one away to Craig Martin in Leadville. Maybe the next one could be you. Like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about the channel, and I appreciate you watching. You keep watching, I'll keep making videos. Thank you.